Well, welcome back, restless spirits. Today, we're going to shake things up a little bit and talk with my buddy Jason from Odd and Untold, which we'll talk about why he's now odd and untold, but he's telling. So we'll get into that. But we're going to also talk about what is para-unity and is it a misnomer? And am I pronouncing that correctly? So let's welcome Jason. Jason, how are you?
Good, Court. How are you? It's good to be
Good.
on your show.
Thank you. Yeah, this we have to say how we're doing like a reciprocal thing, sort of,
Yes.
because we've known each other forever. And then you started Odd and Untold and said, would you like to be a guest? I was like, sure, we've never got to speak. And then like we have in many, many emails, we were like, I love you. So
Yes, yeah, mutual love, mutual respect. We've collaborated over the years, kind of on and off, and always kind of been in touch, liked each other's stuff on social media. You've written for my blog, I've written for your blog. Um, as I mentioned on my show, you helped me a lot in the beginning when I was first starting out in my blog, and so I will always appreciate you for that and your friendship and your kindness. So yeah, of course I wanted you on my show, and after we went off the air, we were kind of talking about how we have to collaborate more. And now that we have this wonderful podcast, YouTube,
new medium.
new medium, that we have to get away from blogging and our old ways and join the kiddies here on TikTok and Instagram and
Oh, are you
whatever else they're
doing
using
the
these days.
TikTok?
I've tried it a few times. It's been pretty successful. I get a lot of traction from it, but I've also been doing like the YouTube shorts, which I know you do. And I've gotten a lot of traction off those too. And it's just, I was saying to somebody the other day, just it's exhausting doing like the social media, like, because you're just like, I got to post on Instagram and then I have to do a story and then I have to do a short and then I have to go over to TikTok and then I have to go back over to YouTube shorts and then I got to post it on Facebook and oh crap, I forgot Twitter. Like I just can't keep up, and I'm terrible at like self promotion. Like I'll do a podcast on something, and then I'll forget to put it on my own page. I'll forget to put it on their page. Like I've interviewed people, and I'm like, I could easily go to their Facebook and just be like, hey, like I
There.
interviewed him or her, and I never do. I always forget.
Oh
And
my gosh, you're making
yeah,
me
just
feel so much better because I'm the worst. And I sort of gave up social media for in 2020 and I slowly added some back in, but pretty much I'm like, yeah, I like YouTube and I'm still doing my blog and that's okay. So, I'll post on Instagram. I think you're doing great on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I refuse to get on TikTok, but that might change. Who knows? But for right now, I'm still no TikTok.
yeah. I mean, I tried it, and it's been successful as far as views, but I don't know if it's bringing many people to the channel or whatever. But like YouTube Shorts, I've been doing a lot of like they bring me a lot of subscribers, and
Lots. Yeah.
um I was talking to a buddy of mine who runs Spooky Island Radio, and he Andy, and he was asking me the other day like, hey, what do you think of YouTube? And I'm like, dude, do it, because like on the podcast platform, so like Apple or Spotify, like my numbers are basically plateaued, like every episode gets about like on average like 40 listens, but YouTube can really skyrocket. So I was like, yeah, definitely get on YouTube because it's the best platform.
Yeah. I was going to say you do really good. I see when I go, because I'm usually pretty far behind watching stuff. I'm sorry. But then I'm like, wow, he does great. Like I do not do that good on views on YouTube. I'm just not. But you're so interesting and you have great guests and you're just that voice of yours. You're just and your presence, you're so calming and collected and centered and
Thank you. I think I'm so calming I can put people to sleep. I think they just
oh my
put it on
gosh,
and fall
no.
asleep to my episodes, and that's why I get so many views.
No, but you
Uh,
know what? That's actually, it's not a bad thing. Like we might think it's bad, but you might have that whole ASMR thing where people find it very soothing and comforting, and that that's not a bad thing. I mean, and plus they wouldn't listen if they didn't think it was interesting because I do that. I put stuff on all the time, but it's like Walking Dead to fall asleep to. But for me, I fall asleep within 5 minutes. It's not because it's boring. It's just, it calms me.
Oh yeah,
Why? I don't
yeah.
know. Zombies are not calming. I don't think for most for my husband. No, he wakes up. He's like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, I mean, I always fall asleep to like spooky shows. And my son just doesn't get it. You know, he's 15 and he's just like, how do you fall asleep to that stuff like ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot? And I'm like, for me, it's calming. I just put it on and I conk out. And I'm like, I guess like in my own home, I'm safe. You know, like Bigfoot's not going to come get me, or, you know, UFOs aren't going to abduct me in the middle of New York City. So, ghosts are a different story, but what's a ghost going to do? You know,
Exactly.
if it touches me, it's more action than I'm getting anyway. So
And it's not like, do you watch Netflix at all?
I do sometimes.
Oh, there's this show, and it's not, I kind of wish like that paranormal shows were more like the Lockwood. It's Lockwood and Co. It's called.
Hmm.
It's out of it's a British based on, I think it's a children or a YA book series or something, but it's very like if the ghost touch you, then you die. And they call it something like ghost some I forget what it was called. I'm like, wow, this show is like it's serious. Like, oh, okay, that like that's but us, our
Hmm.
ghosts, they don't do anything. We just get all excited about noises and stuff. So
Yeah, it's footsteps, it's knocks, it's please come back, talk to me. I'm so lonely.
yeah,
I
yeah.
need a friend.
I'm desperate. I'm desperate in
Desperate.
the land of the living. What's going on in the afterlife? But so that is what basically Auden and Told you do. And that was it was the occult section, right?
It was, yeah. And I explained this on one of my episodes. I think I explained it on my episode with you, or maybe that was off air, I forget. But yeah, I had the blog called the occult section, and for a number of reasons, Google punishing my site because they change their rules every 30 days, and some back end technical difficulties, which no indexed my site and just took the whole site off of Google. And I was finding out that a lot of people, they couldn't access the site like at work or at school or wherever they were because of the word occult. I guess that's offensive to
Oh,
um,
the
IT
trigger
departments.
word. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. So it wasn't getting found. Uh, so yeah, I changed it to Odd Untold. And again, like you and I were talking last time, like we kind of have to like us old fogies have to kind of get with the times and the other hep cats out there and get the TikTok going and
I like that, man. I
the
feel like I need to
Instagrams and
have my hipster hat or something. Oh, I should have worn that or had my selection here so I could pick one.
yeah, because like when you and I first started, it was really like blogging was the big thing, and you know we did that. We were very successful at that, and I mean YouTube was around, but this video vlogging or podcasting really wasn't a thing yet. So it was just time to adapt to the times, and
Yeah.
so I just changed the
Hey,
identity of the site and what I do. So now it's
well, look at you now. I mean, it didn't take much and you're zooming, so
I'm trying. I'm trying.
you're
Lot of help from a lot of friends, yourself included. So I appreciate all of you, and they all know who they are. Josh, Scott, John, Courtney, everybody who's been on the show. So it's just been awesome. So
see, I love check you out. I love it. But I love see, and that is a perfect segue into para unity because a lot of
it
those
is.
people are in the paranormal, right?
Some of them are. Like my first guest was Seth Breedlove, who does small town monsters
Yeah.
documentaries, and he's just, you know, prolific filmmaker from everything, you know, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, other cryptids, and he was
Black-eyed
great.
children too, right?
I don't know if he's done a movie or a documentary on
Or was
that
it
subject yet.
some kind of didn't he do some kind of children though? It might not have been black-eyed. It might have been like haunted. I don't know what I want. I might be confused though. So don't quote
I,
me.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's got so much stuff now. It's hard to, I mean, because he's got his YouTube channel and he's got like other team members who do their own stuff. So he's kind of exploded. His production company has just grown exponentially. And yeah, him being like my first guest was just huge.
Huge.
And I've had other people on. I've had Mike Famelant on from In the Shadow of Red Eye. based in New Jersey, Greg Walter, who's a Bigfoot author. So Gail Beatty, Elsie Lottie, she does Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home out in California. So there are people in the paranormal community, which it's funny because I kind of wanted to avoid that with my show. I kind of wanted to just kind of get people's everyday sort of ghost stories and paranormal experiences and strange experiences. And I didn't really want to do the para celebs so much. But I mean, Seth was just, I mean, he and I've kind of been talking for years, and I've reviewed a lot of his stuff. So I had to ask him, and he was gracious enough to come on. And so most of the shows have just been, friends, family, friends of friends, because that's really what I wanted to showcase was the average person's just strange stories, because I think we all have them to some degree, and some have more stories than others, some have more sensational stories than others. But I think you ask anybody, and you know this, I mean, you've been in the paranormal for a long time,
they
and
all have or know somebody or
right. Very, I mean, I think you come across more people who have had experiences than who haven't. And even the people who think they haven't, they'll kind of like go, wait a second, I did actually have this one thing happen to me like 20 years ago. And they'll tell you, and they're not really pushing it as a whatever ghost story or UFO or whatever, but they'll just say, hey, I kind of saw this weird light one night, or yeah, there was this one time I was staying in this hotel and there was like this weird knocking on the closet door. Like they'll tell you these stories that they don't even really, didn't really impact them too much until they hear that you're into the paranormal. And then they're like, oh, I did actually have an experience.
it's so true. I love because I'm always surprised the friends that will share things with me that I won't like are really good friends that we've known since college. They're a little older than us. They were technically out of college by the time we were in college, but we all hung around together, and we caught up with them to go to the Grand Canyon last year, and they told me, they're like, hey, we have a story to tell you about this cabin that we rented. We would rent it it's in Colorado, and we'd rent it every summer. And then Kim goes, well, then one summer Mark didn't want to go back. And she was like, and I didn't think about it till the next summer, and he had suggested, let's go do something else. And then the next summer, let's go do something. She's like, why don't you ever want to go back to this cabin? He's like, well, and it'd been a few years. So he said, I'll tell you now. But while we were there, one night we were in bed laying there, and there was a darker than dark figure. And I got up thinking someone was in the cabin. It was very remote on a little river, and nobody was there. And so he laid back down, the figure's there. He turned the light off, he turned the light on, the figure's not there. He's like, what in the hell is going on? And then it kind of disappeared. I think it moved. So he went to follow thinking he'll find, and nothing was there. So then the next night it happened. And the next night, like all 5 nights they were there, he's like, I don't know what's happening. I'm like, you saw a shadow person. And he's like, I don't care what I saw, but I knew. And he said, how you know when you feel or hear or see something that it's above the usual or, out paranormal. He said, I knew it was something freaky. And he goes, it tripped me out. And I knew Kim would be like, we're packing up and leaving. He's like, and I really needed a vacation. So he goes, I'll just deal with it. But I'm not telling my wife. So they never went back. But it was cute to hear them because they don't like horror movies. I mean, they're not into paranormal shows, although now their son, at the time he was little then, but now his wife's family owns, and I'm going to forget what the name is. It's in Tucson, and it was on Ghost Adventures. It's a haunted house kind of a place, horror attraction on Halloween attraction, and what's it called, Slaughterhouse maybe, but Ghost Adventures went there and featured them. So it's haunted, and so she's really into the paranormal stuff. But Cody, their son, no, he's like, I don't want any part of it. So it's interesting when normal people
yes, and it's always awkward to phrase that like everyday people or normal people, and it's like I just mean people who aren't like weirdos like us who do this as a hobby and are like sort of obsessed with this. And The paracelebs. Like I said, I didn't really want to focus on stories that have been told to death or people who've been on every other single podcast and TV show. And again, not because I don't want to speak to them, but just like, what do I have to add? What, what questions could I ask them that they haven't been asked a million times before? So for me, it was more like, I just want to talk to everyday people who've had these sort of encounters, who have no agenda to push, who aren't trying to, sell a book or, promote their group, or, and not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but I just wanted the untold and odd stories. So that's where the name sort of came from.
I love that.
Um, but my friend Scott pointed out that like usually the way I sit,
Odd.
and I was like, nothing really describes me much better than this. So I really have to
You're
change the
just
background
an
at some point.
OO.
Odd and
You're
old person.
oh my God, that's hilarious. Now, was Scott the one that you guys did the Christmas horror movie?
No, that's my buddy John.
Oh, John. Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't think
he's
I was like, I didn't think that his name was Scott.
no,
But
Scott's really into Bigfoot, so he's usually on the Bigfoot shows with me.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And you really like the Bigfoot, right?
I do. I do. Even though I kind of started this whole venture as a paranormal investigator doing, ghost hunting and paranormal investigating. Uh, I'm from New York City, so it's kind of tough to look for Bigfoot. Plenty of other weird things to see here, but no Bigfoot in New York City. So it's easier to do ghost hunting and stuff like that. But my heart is in the woods. My heart is in the outdoors, and yeah, I just love the Bigfoot phenomenon.
That's awesome. And what about, so I'm going to steer us back to the paraunity.
Unity, yes.
What about the paraunity phenomenon? How do you feel about that, Jason?
All right, now we're getting into controversial territory.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. I'm going to choose my words carefully here. And you and I go way back, and we've dealt with paraunity and all this stuff for a long time. I think it's great in theory. I think it's one of these things that we all aspire to, and we should aspire to it. We're all in this for the same reasons. We all want answers. We all have the same interest. You would think that we would all sort of come together and move ahead as one. And sadly, that's not always the case. There's a lot of infighting and territoriality. I'm sure you've been victim of it. I have been victim of it as recently as today.
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
no.
oh yeah, we did it. We did an episode. I don't know when this episode that you and I are recording is going to air, but it was episode 32 of my show, the Sasquatch Chronicles controversy, where we were kind of talking about this podcast called the Sasquatch Chronicles. It's very popular. And a report sort of came out. The guy who runs the show, the host, he reportedly had a Bigfoot sighting years ago, and he made a big deal out of it on his show. And there were just lots of provable lies in his story. Mainly that there was a full moon that night, it was clear skies, and people have gone back and sort of said, hey, that's not true. The date that you're saying there was no moon, it was, full cloud cover that night. So, and there were some other things, so I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but some of his fans have kind of commented on my video, and most of them have been very civil, even if they're disagreeing with me. So I give props to them and some of them have even thanked me for being civil back. They've kind of came at me, and I was like, hey, look, I'm not trying to badmouth the guy or anything. I'm simply talking about this report that sort of talks about the inconsistencies in his story, and we were just examining that. And they would come back and say, well, thank you for clarifying or whatever. But I had a few people who were a bit threatening and just telling me like, oh, you're only, you just do, you're attacking someone else to, promote your own show, and you're going to pay dearly for this, and, stuff like that. And I'm like, it's this weird sort of cult like mentality where, everything in our field is an extraordinary story. If you're talking about the paranormal, if you're talking about UFOs, if you're talking about Bigfoot, these are extraordinary stories and they require extraordinary evidence. And if you're going to tell a story, you have to expect people to sort of push back on you and say, well, wait a second, you're saying you saw these things in the moonlight at 2 a.m. when we can verifiably go back to that night and show that it was a new moon and the moon was below the horizon, even if it wasn't a new moon. Like, there was no moon that night. So how did you see these things without night vision? And if you can't even get the moon right in your story, why should we believe that you saw Bigfoot? And I'm sorry, that was a huge tangent, but just to kind of prove that just daily, like, there is this sort of schism in our field where people sort of have their loyalties and they believe this, and if you believe something different, they're going to come attack you and you're wrong, and they're going to come on your page and they're going to harass you, and vice versa. And I've always tried to say on my show, look, like, this is kind of my thought process, and if you don't agree with it, that's great. And I've had people on my show who I don't necessarily agree with, because I don't want that sort of echo chamber. And I don't think any of us should have that. I think it's important that we all listen to each other, and again, try to move forward in that same direction together, instead of everybody kind of splintering off into their own direction.
And this tribe versus that tribe.
Right. And certain territoriality I can understand. Some people want to protect where they're investigating or some of their data, just to prevent contamination. If you say, hey, and you've probably seen this too, you say, oh, like, this house in X town has a ghost story. What's going to happen once that gets out and it's on social media? Like, people are going to start showing up. They're going to be knocking on the door. Hey, you have every paranormal group within a 50-mile radius now sort of harassing these people. Hey, can we come in and investigate? And again, many groups out there are very professional and do not do that. But for every sort of respectful group you have out there and respectful researcher, you have the sort of fly-by-night people who just think this is fun and it's a hobby and they don't care about trespassing. They'll just, show up on your lawn, and they'll be in your garage one night trying to, do an EVP session, and,
without
permission. And it's so I do understand some territoriality. But again, it does hurt PARAUNITY in that way, because now you sort of feel like, okay, you've stumbled on to some information, whether it's a location, whether it's data, and then you're saying, well, but that's mine and I can't share it. And there's a point of understanding there, but there's also, that does sort of breed contempt.
Yes, there's so much jealousy and possessiveness, and just it's just lunacy at certain times. I do get it, but I don't get it, because I guess everybody wants that claim to fame that, oh, I'm the first one that found the ghost, or I'm the first one with verifiable evidence. But then at the same time, people are like, well, I don't have to recreate it. It is evidence. And I think the thing that I really struggle with is, why is it that every other science has to be able, they're held to a certain standard of being able to replicate under certain conditions, but paranormal deserves a pass because it's special, which that I really struggle. And I don't understand, because I don't actually understand what any of it is that's happening. Is it, is it an intelligent haunting? Is it a residual? We don't know. We call them these things, but in fact, we don't know. Is it a time loop? Is it some kind of a dimensional thing? There's so many theories, and none of them have been proven. None of them have been, successfully recreated. And I just don't understand why we think that the paranormal deserves a pass. And you brought up something really interesting when you was a footstep one. You have a shorts of it, but you also have a video where you talk about it, that you're like, now, I'm not saying this is a ghost. I'm not saying it's a, you were even hesitant to use the word evidence. Data is a good good word, I guess, too. But I like that you always approach it. And then, but you did have it where we were in a certain spot at the same time of night, and there were the footsteps. So,
Yeah, and that was like probably the only time that we ever had like what you're saying, like a replication of it, where we had this experience and then we went back a few months later and same experience. And again, that doesn't mean it's paranormal. It just means that we had the same experience twice, and science has much higher standards than that. You can't just, you can't just cherry pick what you want to use as evidence. And that's why I hate using that word, because a lot of paranormal groups, they'll sit in a building for 8 hours and they'll sit there and say, give us a sign of your presence. Give us a sign of your presence. If you're here, give us a sign of your presence. Oh my God. Proof of the paranormal, and they'll do 8 hours of EVPs and they get one noise and they say, well, there's proof, we captured something.
it's haunted.
It's haunted. This place is definitely haunted. And for me, that's questionable, highly questionable, because why didn't it answer you the first 10, 15 times you asked? Why didn't it not answer you the subsequent 10 or 15 times you asked? It's just that one time, and you're sort of cherry picking that one sound, which could be the house settling. It could be a rodent in the walls. It could be another team member moving around that you don't necessarily see.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have that replication of the sound, if you ask the question and every time you ask it, you're getting an answer, that would be fascinating. As of yet, I have not seen that in the paranormal community. It's this sort of cherry picked thing where people are going through hours and hours and hours of evidence and they're putting together a YouTube video and it's a couple of knocks and they're saying, oh, here's evidence. And it's not. What is it evidence of? It's in the
The
grand scheme of
sound.
things, it's and that's why I always say it's like, all right, we caught something. We caught this weird sound that we couldn't account for. We heard footsteps that we could not account for. That's very different than saying a ghost did it, because
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe there was a huge rat running up the stairs and it just made the sound like human footsteps, and the acoustics and from where we were sitting, we could be mistaken. So I always leave that room for doubt, because how can I say that was definitely it? And it always drives me crazy when people do that, where they have these lengthy EVP sessions and the one question out of 20 or 30 that gets answered, they're saying, aha, there's our proof. There's our proof that this place is haunted. And it's not, because there's no replication there. There's no, you got a sound or you got something. What was that? We don't know. So you want to present that as something strange? Great. Like I'm all for that. Like, all right, you caught something strange. But if you're gonna, promote this and go to the local newspaper and be like, oh, we have proof that, Joe's Diner is haunted because we got this one noise, like, to me, that just rings hollow. And again, people will attack me for this viewpoint because PARAUNITY is tough to come by, because a lot of people will just say, well, no, we went investigating last night and so I try
That's
not to be
the
too critical, but
it's
I do think critical thinking has left this community a long time ago.
yeah, there's like very little left. It's mostly about getting the fame or, the hits, the likes, the notoriety, the next TV show, whatever. It has nothing really to do about the evidence, which makes it very hard for me to watch the shows a lot of times because hey, even the cat, I don't know if you heard that. He's like, yeah, she doesn't like him. But it's hard because I want to find the answers and then I get so upset because well, I don't get upset, but it's annoying when people are like, well, you're just a skeptic, which they are like trying to say that means I don't believe, which is exactly not what that means. I'm actually trying to find a logical answer, an explanation, and understanding. And I want to know what is happening, whether it's paranormal, whether it's not. So it's really hard to be super curious and then poo-pooed because everybody's like, well, you just don't believe, you don't understand, and they just dismiss you, and that's fine. So I keep a lot of my opinions to myself, because like you said with the Bigfoot guy, there are so many things that I've seen that I'm like, that's just not true. And I don't know if you've seen this show. It's new, and it has nothing to do with the paranormal, but it's Natasha Leone, Poker Face. It's a
I've heard of it.
Peacock
Yeah.
show. Oh my God, she's brilliant in this show. And I'm just in love with her, because when she says, when she can automatically tell if somebody's lying, like it's just a feeling she gets, and she'll say bullshit when she hears somebody saying something she doesn't like. And that's me. Like there's so many times I never say it out loud, but I'm like bullshit. Like I just know they're not being forthright with what they're saying. There's a lot of people that have experiences though, and those aren't the people I discount, but the people that are either too aggressive about, well, you've got to listen to me, I've got this, and I know all the answers, and those are the people that I have trouble
Yeah,
with.
it becomes like a cult like mentality where it's, you know, you have to believe this. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like you need this critical thinking, and every story should be scrutinized, including my
Yes.
own. And I've said this, like, you know, if I tell a story on my podcast or whatever, I'll say, if anybody can explain this for me, please contact me. Like I would love
To
a
know.
scientific, rational explanation, just so I know, okay, I can move this out of the paranormal, you know, category. And now I know what I saw or what I experienced. Um, but there's so many people who just want to believe,
Yeah.
and there's no critical thinking. There's no, and that's what I'm saying. Like this story with this guy with the moon and everything, you know, people were attacking me for saying I was attacking him. And I have to go back to them and say, no, I'm not attacking him. I'm just saying if everything else about his story is untrue, verifiably untrue, because you can go back and check weather reports, you can go back and check GPS coordinates. If literally everything else about his story, if he couldn't get the moon right, if the moon was not there and he's saying the moon was there, there was a full moon, the moon was lighting up everything, how can I then believe that he saw 5 Bigfoot creatures trying to attack his car? It just, and
It
I
doesn't
understand
happen.
people's stories get, you know, you go through something traumatic, you're going to remember things a little differently. Certain details are going to escape you. But to kind of pound home that you saw these things because the moonlight was illuminating them, that your little house of cards crumbles there. And that's not me trying to be uh on the offensive. I'm not trying to attack him. I'm not being spiteful because of his success. I still listen to his show. I think he's got a great show. I just question how a certain fact can be so obviously wrong, and people will defend him. You know, they come at you with the pitchforks and their torches, and they're like, you know, you're attacking him. And it's like, no, I'm questioning. And everything in our community should be questioned. Every piece of evidence should be questioned. And I've said this before
Agree.
too, that, you know, someone can put something online and they can say, here's, you know, what we caught, and there's nobody else in the building, blah, blah, blah. I never believe it. Not because it's anything personal against them. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Exactly.
I can talk about my own experience. I can say, okay, I was in my apartment alone, you know, but someone in, you know, online who's just watching one of my stories, they're going to say, you know, maybe somebody came in, maybe he didn't hear that. Maybe somebody was there. Maybe it was this. I mean, there are too many variables. So I'll never say my stories are unquestionable. Every story should be questioned. Every story should be looked at and put through a ringer. And, you know, none of us deserve to have the cult come after us of whatever they believe to say, no, you are wrong. Because yeah, I mean, the TV shows have their fans. Zach Bagans has his fans, and Ghost
Oh,
Hunters have their fans. And
every time when you say somebody will come after you, he's the first one, because they're the worst. They are ruthless about attacking. So yeah, okay. But I didn't
yeah,
mean to
so
interrupt. Sorry.
no, that's fine. But so the whole concept of para-unity is really tough because everybody's in their own little camp, and when one camp does something or says something that goes against the other camp, now they kind of go to war and they attack each other online, and it's it's just not pretty, you know.
No.
but there is a lot of unity out there. You and I are proof of that. You helped me a lot. There's other podcasters that I talk to, and we help each other. We've been on each other's shows, or someone will ask for advice, like I mentioned earlier. Uh, and that's really the way to foster it, because if you're going to see everybody as your competition, you're not really going to grow. And it's not taking food out of my mouth if someone has a podcast that gets more downloads than mine, or more views. Like it's we're all in this together, and I think if we can boost each other and help each other, that's the way to go. But sadly, so many in this community also don't see that, and they kind of build these walls around themselves, and they proclaim that they're right, and if you disagree with them, you're wrong. And I know this great location, but I can't share it, and I have this information, but I can't tell you what it is or where I got it from. And sure, I'll make that up too. I know exactly what Bigfoot are, because I know somebody in the U.S. military and he told me, but I can't share you the information. I can't tell you who he is. I can make lofty claims too. It doesn't, but there are people who will buy into that and be like, oh my God,
Oh my
Jason
gosh.
knows somebody in the military and he knows what Bigfoot are, and I'm going to watch his show now. No,
Oh
anybody can
my.
say that. Anybody can just make these things up. And, um, just because someone's got a TV show doesn't mean they know anything more than we do.
No. It
Um,
just means that, yeah, I don't have anything nice to say. So, I mean, there's been tons. I think even you've been on as uh, I don't know if you've shared your story. I mean, you've been involved, and a lot of times it's not so much the the people in front of the camera as behind the producers and stuff that want to weave things a certain way. So
yeah, I've been on shows where I've been like a talking head, basically.
that's it. I forget
Just
what
the
that's called.
yeah, and it's sounds almost derogatory. I'm just a talking head. I'm not investigating. I'm not, so I'll be on there just to kind of give an opinion or to kind of relate a story. I've been approached by producers to be on TV shows. Do you want to come on the show and we're going to investigate? I always decline, because we all know what happens when you go on those shows. They make things up, and I have
Oh yeah.
lots of stories from people I know from places I investigated that certain shows went in after us and investigated, and multiple takes of evidence, scripts that were left. I actually have scripts from certain shows in my attic at home. I have to dig them out, but like actual scripts,
Oh my gosh.
from very popular, well-known
Reality.
reality shows. And people always, and even that I've gotten yelled at, and people attack me online, and how do you know they're fake? And I'm like, okay, well, the priest at the church that let them investigate called us up afterwards and said, we'll never let another TV show in here again, because they asked us to lie. They did multiple takes. You guys were professional. You came in here and did what you had to do, but they asked us to lie on camera. They did multiple takes. They faked all their evidence.
Oh my gosh.
And again, people can believe me or not believe me, but and anybody who's an actual investigator is going to know that you spend hours of your life investigating and you get
You do
zilch,
not
but
get what they get for 8 or 10 episodes
right.
every
And they get
season.
something every episode. Every
No.
episode they're capturing stuff, and stuff's going
Yeah.
on, and I understand why they do it. I don't agree with it, but I understand, the
They
networks
have
want
to.
ratings, and no one's going to tune in every week to see,
People
we
just
caught
sit.
nothing. Your house is,
We don't want
we
to
have
go.
no proof that your house is haunted. We caught nothing. Yeah, we spent 8 hours here and we caught nothing. That's very boring. So every week it's Zach gets possessed by a
Excitement.
demon, or and Jason and Grant are hearing stuff and their jackets are being tugged, and oh my God, what the hell was that? And it's all for show. It's all for the camera. It's all so that the viewers tune in again next week, because, oh, what'll happen next week? Maybe it'll be even crazier. And they keep upping the ante. And I don't know if this is getting off the paranormal unity topic, or we're kind of goofing on the shows, but uh just again, that the fans and that other groups, and uh they will kind of hold you down. They will attack you, instead of just sort of saying, that's interesting, and that's a different perspective, and tell us more about your point of view and your experience. They'll just kind of shoot you down and accuse you of whatever they want to accuse you of, and it can be tiring. It can be real tiring.
And I wonder too, because you're obviously a man and I'm a woman. Um, Sometimes I feel that, And it's interesting that you have had it happen too, which I understand it happens to everybody. But it does sort of seem too like women get, pushed aside. But you've never been. You're always, you don't really, you don't discriminate either way. I mean, if you're going to question somebody or, embrace them, you don't really care. But there are a lot of people that do seem to do that too. And that's another thing that's really hard to,
Yeah, and you see that in a lot of the different communities. I think the paranormal ghost hunting community um, seems to be very accepting of female investigators and women power, and that's fine. There's tons of females in the paranormal community. It's when you sort of get into like the Bigfoot community and the UFO community, those tend to be very male dominated, and it's hard for women to sort of break through because I don't even know. I can maybe assume from the Bigfoot community, it's just more that women are just far less likely to want to be camped out in the woods, with bears and sleeping on the ground and no toilets. It's easier for men to just pick a tree, whereas women have to. It's much more difficult for women.
process.
It's a process, and there are many great female Bigfooters out there, but the ratio is way off.
Yeah.
Amy Boo, my friend Melissa Hovey Larson. I mean, these are just great people in the Bigfoot community who are women, and they're killing it, but it's a small fraction of, it's mostly men. And again, I don't know if that's men trying to keep them out. And I'm sure a few of them have had probably bad experiences with men, this territoriality, and, oh, you're just a woman. What do you know? But I think for the most part, it's just that men are far more likely to put on the camo and put on their boots and a backpack and just go spend a week in the woods, where a woman typically would not prefer to do that. I think that's why they gravitate more towards the ghost hunting. The UFO community is a whole other story. I mean, that's full of, from what I understand, a lot of misogyny, a lot of racism. Again, I don't delve too much into that. I enjoy UFOs, but I am not really, I don't follow the community too much, because you think ghost hunting and Bigfoot goes off in some weird directions. The UFO community can go into some
Really weird. Yeah.
really weird,
I'm
dark
just sort
corners.
of on the fringe of Bigfoot, and I really don't. I had a brief foray into the UFO, and I was like, these some of them are super, super smart, but that's like the except. I mean, not that the rule is not smart. They're just they're extreme. I don't know any other way to say that. And I don't mean to offend anybody that is in the UFO. It's just that that's a really different realm from the rest.
It is, and I don't know if it's just the complexity of it. I don't know if it's just so many more reports of it. Because again, you can see a UFO from anywhere. It's almost like a ghost encounter. Like, you don't
And
have to
any
be
time, yeah.
anytime, anywhere. It's like with a Bigfoot, you kind of have to be out in the woods. You can't, you're not going to have Bigfoot sightings in the big cities, but you can have UFO sightings. You can have ghost encounters, so I think the UFO community is just so much more vast and so much more complicated because of just different aspects of it, where you have military, you have interdimensional type stuff, you have alien stuff, you have underwater sort of craft that people are reporting. And there's just so many sort of subsections of it, that
Everything, yeah.
of everything.
And one thing I would say too, though, what was interesting was there was her name's not going to come to me. She was a lady though, and she had her own kind of radio show. Ugh, it won't come to me. If it does, I'll spit it out. But she was very interesting because she was more on the intelligent, spectrum, the more academic side of
Mhm.
things. And she also did ghost hunting at one time, but then she had pulled away from that. She still would do it on her own, but she refused to be around groups anymore because of all the, infighting. And if you brought up I should have reached out to her. I don't even know if she's still around, but I should have reached out to her to bring her on with this, because you mentioned PARAUNITY and she was just get spitting mad. She's like, that doesn't exist. These people are nuts. They're so cutthroat and ruthless. And I don't know what happened to her, but her experience was bad. But she did say that the UFO people, she felt more of there was more of a teamwork and wanting to work together and
Hmm.
less trying to, push somebody, because you can't really claim too much. I mean, with that, it there's likely going to be a lot of people that have the same, sighting or whatever. So it was very interesting to hear from that side. But from the Bigfoot side, I don't actually know. Does there's, I mean, you did mention territoriality, but does there seem to be more working together or harmony or?
Um, I don't think so.
Oh no.
Because there's a lot of different thoughts that there's a you can kind of look at the Bigfoot community and there's a bunch of different camps. So you have it's a flesh and blood creature, or it's this interdimensional
Oh, being.
being that phases in and out of reality. They call that the woo crowd because that's a little out there. Because a lot of people think this is just an undiscovered primate, which would make it nothing paranormal. It's nothing really unusual. It's just something in our natural environment that just we haven't caught up with yet. Versus this thing is jumping through portals, or UFOs are coming down and dropping it off, and it's walking its pet chupacabra on its intergalactic journey. um, so you have that, and then you have the like the kill versus no kill community,
Oh,
which is kind of hilarious for me because it's people get really heated in these arguments over whether or not we should kill this creature that may or may not even exist, but people will get into their camps of should we kill one to prove that it exists or should we not kill one? And those people will be at each other's throats. They will, like, if they hear that you are pro kill and they are anti kill, I mean, it's almost like the abortion debate where people just get real dug in on their side. And so there's a lot of infighting about that. And then you have, again, you have territoriality. You have people who discover a place where they say there's a lot of Bigfoot activity here and they won't disclose it. They'll call it, oh, this is area X, or this is area B, or this is, the phantom zone, or they'll give it some weird name. And again, as I said earlier, I kind of understand that to a degree, because if you go on your podcast and say, hey, I have this location where we've been to and we found a lot of good stuff, guess what? Tomorrow you're going to go, there's going to be 50 people, 50 other Bigfoot hunters there, all hooting and hollering and banging on trees and all thinking that they're talking to Bigfoot. And it ruins your evidence. So I do understand that territoriality to a degree, because you have to preserve,
the integrity.
yeah, if you're finding some evidence, or if you're getting good results in a location, you don't want to tell people, because then yeah, anyone listening is going to show up there with all their equipment. And now instead of just you and your two buddies who are out there looking for Bigfoot, now it's 30 or 40, 50 people out there just trampling the grounds and looking for Bigfoot, and you're not going to find anything. And now it's gone forever. You can't go back there because now people are just going to go there every weekend looking for Bigfoot. So I
Uh,
understand that territoriality.
I can
But
understand that.
and then and then and then there's fighting within the groups. There's people who, ghost hunters will come to me and be like, "You believe in Bigfoot?" Like, that's stupid. And I'm like, "You believe
Um,
in like you're just tell me your ghost story, but now you're laughing at me because I believe in Bigfoot," or vice versa. The UFO people will be like, "Oh, you believe in ghosts?" And it's like, you're believing that alien creatures are traversing hundreds of thousands of light years to come here and just kind of,
watch
hover in
us.
the sky or abduct cows, and but believing in ghosts is weird. Like, so there's a lot of infighting even just within the different paranormal communities, where they just mock each other. And again, there's lots of overlap as well, but there's a lot of that where I've gotten called out on that. Like, you believe in Bigfoot? And it's like, yeah, like, you've said you've seen like 4 UFOs. So why is that okay, but I can't believe in Bigfoot? Um, so there's a lot of that.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that before. I guess I've never been in that's one situation. All these years, I don't think I ever have been in that. That's crazy. Because I think I have heard though people say, no, I don't think Loch Ness Monster is a thing. Or maybe they do say, I probably don't believe in Bigfoot, but they've never, like, you know, personally laughed at me for I'm open to everything. Again, I'm a skeptic, but I don't know. I don't know if Bigfoot's out there. I kind of believe or I would say I would find it extremely hard not to believe that it's just us in this planet. I mean, we find stuff within our own planet, from little bitty bugs to big fish to bigger mammals or primates, or well, I guess not primates, but animals, and in our own planet. And why would we be the only thing in how who knows how big the universe is? I mean, I just, to me, it seems very hard to believe that. So
Yeah, and again, I think it just comes down to respect. It comes down to you can believe what you want to believe, disbelieve what you want to not believe in. I have a hard time believing in lake monsters. Just if you're looking at the science of it, a lot of these bodies of water that supposedly house these huge monsters don't really have a food source for these
source,
monsters. There's not enough fish
yeah.
in the lake. There's not enough, and then people say, well, what about Bigfoot? What does Bigfoot eat? And I said, well, it eats the same things that the grizzly bears eat. It eats the same thing that the black bears eat. Like, you have these other huge creatures, sometimes bigger than what a supposed Bigfoot would be. You have, moose, you have, like I said, grizzly bears. Like, these things exist and they've managed to find food. So why couldn't a Bigfoot? I know I'm saying that's not proof of Bigfoot, but at least you can look to it and say, here's an analogy to Bigfoot. Here's, a large creature that there's an ample food source. There's deer, there's berries, there's smaller mammals that this thing could feed on. Whereas if you're looking at a dead lake where there's very few fish or very small fish,
yeah, what are they eating?
what is this thing eating? And again, it needs a breeding population. So there's not, if there's a Loch Ness monster, it's not just one
It's
Loch Ness monster. It's
gotta
got to be
be.
many Loch Ness monsters.
Or if there was, it's probably long extinct.
Right. Right. So, and again, I'm not saying, I would love personally if they just, found proof of a Loch Ness monster or another lake monster. I'm not anti-fun, I would love for these things, it's just, for me, it's harder to believe in a lake monster in a lake where there's really no food source versus saying Bigfoot can't exist in the Pacific Northwest where there's grizzly bears, there's wolves, there's other large mammals that grow to enormous sizes. So why couldn't a Bigfoot?
And how often do people go out and see all of those things, like on our, jaunts up to Alaska? Not every time do we see bears, or we have seen, I think, a moose. We've always seen a bear at some point, but, well, except maybe the first two times, but we've seen moose because they're on the roads. I mean, you could just drive down the road, there could be a moose. Um, but how often, like when you go out, do you see a bear? Every time when you're in bear country or Bigfoot?
Never seen a bear. We've never even seen deer. We've seen deer tracks, we've seen bear tracks, but the biggest thing we've probably ever seen is a squirrel, which I can see in the city. But we'll go deep into the woods. We go up in the Adirondacks, and I'll say this to people: like, there's tons of deer out there, there's tons of bear, but I've never seen them.
Wow, see? So, and
And
that's the thing that I think is interesting. To your point, that people go out to see Bigfoot, but then they're in the same territory, like you said, where the bears and that they get their food source, but then do you even see like evidence of poop and stuff from other animals?
I've seen bear scat maybe once, coyote scat once or twice, deer scat sometimes. It's usually tracks. It's usually just you pass a muddy part in the trail and you'll see deer tracks. We've seen a couple of bear prints. We've seen cougar prints.
Ooh.
But like I said, the biggest thing we ever see is like a squirrel.
Wow.
We don't see. I mean, they know that we're there. They know that we're hiking in. They can smell us. They can see us. They can hear us, and they avoid us. And we've maybe had some bears come in overnight. We've heard things walk through the camp, but you just never seen them. So
See, I'm more, I think, afraid of bears than I am Bigfoot. Like,
yeah,
if they were gonna come, because I mean, there have been recorded attacks of, or there have been recorded accounts of bear attacks. Really, no, I mean, there are alleged Bigfoot encounters, but
right,
none that are verifiable, I guess.
right, right.
That's so
Um,
interesting.
yeah, but it's just so people can find anything to fight about in any of these communities, and yeah, I mean it's
Is there anything that you like feel strongly enough that you will fight or are you just like, okay, fine, if that's what you want to blur? Do you have anything that you're super convicted about?
not really, because I
Me
always
neither.
try to leave the door open for other explanations, and again, just for us to just assume that we know what these things are. We look at UFOs and we're assuming they're from other planets. Why? Because it just makes the most sense. We're saying, okay, this is not something we built, so someone else must have built this. Why didn't it come from an underwater civilization? Maybe there's sentient beings under the oceans that build this, and that's like their submarine. Maybe it is interdimensional. Maybe it's a military aircraft. Maybe it's foreign aircraft. Like we just don't know. So to assume that we know what these things are, I think it's just a bit egotistical of us. Same thing with ghosts. Same things with Bigfoot. Like to just assume that we know what it is. So I always try to leave the door open as to I don't know what this is. I don't know what I experienced. I don't know what I saw. This is what it looked like to me, or this is what it felt like to me, and everyone else can kind of make up their own mind. And like I said, I'm always open for if someone can come to me and be like, hey, again, to use the example of those footsteps, if the security guard who let us in there that night emails me tomorrow and says, hey Jay, you know what, I had my friend in there, and he was kind of goofing on you guys and just trying to give you a spook. Cool. I'll go on air and I'll say, yeah, this is I got an explanation for it. And sadly, it's not a ghost or paranormal or anything strange. It's just we were being punked, like we got pranked, and that's fine. I would rather know the disappointing truth than to blindly believe
Exactly.
an exciting lie. Like I don't want to live my life like that. So I leave everything open. So I'm not really like gung ho about anything. I have things that I tend to align with. Um, but if evidence to the contrary comes up, I can change my opinion. I'm not going to just stick to that and say, no, you're wrong. And this is what it is.
See, I love that. And I love the word that you used too, was just that if, you know, evidence to the contrary comes up, you are open to saying, okay, that's what I mean, that's what I've always admired about you. So that's a very long winded way of saying that I agree with.
No, but I get what you're saying because I mean, lots of people have weird stories, and I always appreciate it more when people are kind of open minded to what it could have been, and they just say, hey, this weird thing happened to me, and I can't explain it. That's very different than the
Truth.
person who takes a picture of their attic and there's orbs and like, oh look, I caught like 37 ghosts, I've counted them, and it's like, no, it's dust, and they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that it's
No.
dust. They don't want to hear whatever explanation you can give to them that is much more likely than the wild fantastical one they're giving you. So that always gives me pause when people are just like, here's a picture of a ghost, or here's a picture of Bigfoot, and look behind that tree, you can kind of see him peeking out and he's holding a baby, and it's like, I see leaves, dude. Like there's nothing there. Like you're looking way too hard.
And I do have to say that some of the photos, like we're so used to now getting great photos with even with our camera. But I will say that I was in the park last, I don't know if it was spring or fall. When do deers have babies?
I'm not sure.
Me either.
um
I want to say it was fall, but I don't know why that doesn't feel right. It could have been summer. I don't know. But there was a doe with two fawns, and when I would try to get a picture, to me, it looked perfectly, they were right there in front of me, but the way that the bushes were and stuff, I
mhm.
couldn't get it. So I thought, well, that's very interesting because I think that eventually someone, if something exists, will get a good shot because there's a ton of people that go out too with their, Zoom cameras that are birders or whatever, nature photographers, and they can get that. But so far, none of those people have had the fortune to come across a Bigfoot. So I think that, and not that a photo would be, proof, but it might lead to something else. I don't know.
Right.
It's all very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, but it's people will squabble.
They
People will
will.
continue to squabble. It's just the paraunity thing.
I don't
Again,
know that it's
it's great in certain, again, like with you and I, like I was basically your competition and you were helping me get my blog started. And that's like you didn't have to do that. And I think I even told you, like a lot of other people just ignored me. Like
oh
didn't even write back to me like, hey, I'm not I don't have time to help you right now, but good luck. Like they wouldn't even acknowledge me.
oh.
Um
And
and
it's
again,
so
I don't
funny. I don't even
yeah.
think of you as like I did. It didn't dawn on me because I don't know, but it's just weird. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry, didn't
I
mean to
think that's
interrupt
just the type of person you are. I think you're just a kind, generous person who's not trying to see suspicion and around every corner of like, what is this guy's game? Like, I'm just, hey, I love your blog and you're very successful. And like, can you give me a few pointers? Like where do I even begin?
you.
Um, and again, I'm seeing that in the podcasting community where there's a lot of people who do want to help each other, but at the same time, you see plenty of people who just like every one of their Instagram posts is just venom, and it's criticizing people and oh, people are trying to be me, and it's just
Oh,
ego, and it's just hard to read because we're all here hunting ghosts or looking for UFOs or camping out with Bigfoot, and it's at the end of the day, it's really just silly stuff. And I think you can be a serious investigator, but also not take yourself too seriously. Just
seriously.
have fun with it and help other people out who need your help and request your help. And again, I understand territoriality to a degree, but collaboration is always better. I mean, it helps you, it helps them.
And if
Everybody
that's how
benefits
people
from it.
find answers, I mean, any of the big breakthroughs, it wasn't, people, it was people were working together and sharing ideas and arguing and trading, differences of opinion.
Right. And then it just makes you question, like, do you really want answers or do you want the
Yeah.
answers? Do
Yeah.
you want to be the one who gets interviewed? Do you want
Yes.
to be the one who gets on TV? Do you want the one whose website gets the most hits or Instagram post gets the most interaction? Or is it really about sharing information, getting the answers? And there are some of us who just want the answers and will freely share that information. And then there's other people who
They just want the
they
fame.
they just want the fame and the hits and the
Yeah.
social media
And there's
cachet.
tons of people that they want. I can't tell you how many people, not that I'm that big, but they'll latch on at first because they're
Mm-hmm.
just starting out, and then I'm a stepping stone, like I'm the first stone, right? And then they go to the next bigger, the next, till they're up talking with the Zach Bagans and anybody that's on TV. But they'll do that, and I've had that happen a ton. So but you know what, even still, I just, okay, I don't know. Sometimes I do, a lot of times I get a feeling about
Mm-hmm.
folks, but and you can tell from their social media if it's all about them all the time and who they want to be associated with, then that I can sense it. But I'll still talk to them because I believe you get what you give. So I'm not going to give somebody shade unless I deserve it, but I'm not going to start out by, I have nothing to gain from that. So I don't know. But another thing I want to say too is you really hit on ego, because I think it's so hard for people. It becomes so personal. Like we don't want our beliefs attacked, and we believe so fiercely, and it's so hard. So I try to be sensitive to that as much as I can. But if they're gonna, fire back, obviously I'm not gonna take that. But I will always be civil to start. I just definitely draw the line where that's not acceptable. So I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
I
what
think
to say.
that's the great way to do it. And until people give you a reason otherwise to
Yeah.
kind of back off from them, I think yeah, if someone's reaching out to you, if they want to help, if they want to collaborate, I think that's great. Because again, we're not curing world hunger here. We're not. it's like I said, it's a fun little hobby. And again, if we find answers along the
Nobody's
way, that's
gotten a
great.
Nobel Prize for
Exactly. And it's
paranormal.
just, yeah, but it's just the drive of people to just, yeah, like want to hang with the para celebs, or to want to overtake the para celebs, or who wants their own TV show, and who wants to just be like a paranormal influencer, just like one of these like Instagram celebrities. And it's like,
What is
and
that going to get you?
what does it get you? If you're so shallow inside that that's the only thing that gives you any sort of self-worth, I kind of pity them, and I tell my friends, because a lot of people like just all they want to do is talk to me about paranormal stuff. And it's like, I'm more than just, a paranormal.
Paranormal.
Like, I'm a musician, I'm a father, I'm a painter, I write, I play video games. I like, there's so much more to me than just, oh, did you investigate any haunted houses lately? And it's like, there's more to me than that,
What
and
what do you play? I did not know this. This is like brand or paint.
oh.
I did not know. This is so new,
um
like new info.
yeah, well, there's lots of things about me. I play guitar, I play, mainly rock music, heavy metal. um yeah, it's just, it's just other hobbies that I have, and it's none of them define me. None of them are like, oh, this is all I am. I try to be an eclectic sort of person, an interesting sort of person. uh and that's why I find it so fascinating when people just have this laser focus on building their brand. And not there's anything wrong with that, but I think when you are stepping on people like you're stepping on the backs of others to sort of elevate yourself because you want more Instagram followers, and you want more hits on your website, and you want more podcast downloads. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this, like, I do this because I enjoy it. I really, I have videos that have 500 views, and I have videos that have 20 views. And like, I never get discouraged. I never get like, oh man, I got to give this up. Like, I don't care. I'm doing this for me. And if people come along for the ride, you're, welcome. Come with me. I love you guys. Come with me. If you don't, that's great too. Like, I'm not here to make
Hmm.
money. I'm not here to like stand on anyone else's shoulders. I don't aspire to talking to Zach Bagans or communicating with him on Twitter or any of his ilk. Again, they can go do what they need to do and fake their evidence on TV, and have their cult followers. And I'm getting a little controversial here, but it's true, and I see so many people, just as someone who is also starting out here as a podcaster. I just see so many contemporary people to me who are just nasty, who are just um ego driven, and they're right and you're wrong. And if you don't agree with me, get off my page. And I'm not like
Mm.
that.
No, you're not.
I've had some nasty comments the past couple of days, and I've tried to answer them diplomatically and respectfully. And then they come back and they're like, oh, thank you for clarifying, or thank you for the discussion. Like, it
It
diffuses the
diffuses.
situation.
Oh, totally. Pepsi Coke. That's right.
Pepsi
That's
Coke.
totally.
Yeah. And it's just because I think just that infighting is pointless, and it's so tempting to just want to go after them and call them names back or threaten them back.
And it
It's human
doesn't.
nature to defend yourself, but you know, I think it's easier to just kind of use that as a teaching moment for them, to sort of
And
diffuse it, and sort of say, no, that's not what my intentions were.
no, and you show people how you want to be treated by doing that, and they will rise to that.
Right.
So
And most of them have. I mean, I'll give them credit. They kind of came after me. They got a little offended, and they kind of went after me, and I was very calm and respectful of them. And they came back and said, well, okay, I see your point. Thank you for the conversation. And that's all I want, is like conversation. Because
that's
if
all.
we share, and we don't have to agree, we don't all have to agree. We're all going to, like you said, some people are residual haunting, or it's an active haunting, or it's just trapped energy, or it's the spirit from heaven, whatever you want to believe in. It's aliens, it's interdimensional beings, it's a flesh and blood creature, it's from a portal. Whatever you believe, I have respect for that. Just have respect for me, and if we respect each other, we'll get the answers. Because at the end of the day, none of us know anything. We don't
No,
know anything. We're all in this looking for answers because it fascinates us. And we're going to get answers by working together, not by fighting each other and butting heads and keeping information and saying,
Exactly. And
so
that, I think you hit the secret sauce to the paraunity is respect.
yes, I think that's the key to it. It's, you don't have to agree, but you got to respect other people, respect the differences, because even if we think differently, I may have one piece of the puzzle, you may have another.
And if you're
And if we're
not putting it,
fighting,
yeah,
it never kind of, oh, okay, now we have the whole, we just have these. So I just think we're going to accomplish a lot more working together than constantly fighting.
I agree. And I love it. Oh my gosh. And I did not mean to, I have no idea. I don't have my readers on, but I did not mean to keep you this long,
Oh
but I
no,
am
it's
so
fine. It's
glad you
fine.
did.
Yeah, no, I'm here for the long haul. But
It was an awesome chat.
yeah, thank you
And
for
so
having me.
everybody can find you at Odd and Untold
Yes.
on
On
YouTube,
Yeah, pretty
Instagram.
pretty much any social media you could just look for Odd and Untold. So Instagram, Facebook, we're on Twitter, all most podcast platforms, most of the major ones, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Stitcher, YouTube. Like I said, we have a website, oddanduntold.com. So yeah, if you just Google Odd and Untold, not Odd and Old, Odd and Old will just get you pictures of me grimacing
Yeah.
and telling you to
Who
get off my lawn.
and who knows what that in this digital might that might be some freaky stuff that nobody.
Yeah, on certain websites, that'll get you some real niche videos.
Hey, if that's your thing, no judgment. No.
Exactly. Old people need to get it on too.
You might be old, but you're not dead. So
Exactly.
that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, on that note, I will just thank you so much for spending your evening with me, or
Oh,
part
of
of your evening.
course. Of course. Anytime. And we will hopefully do this again. I want you
Yes.
back on my show too. So
Okay. So
we'll
we'll
keep
just keep doing the.
we'll keep seesawing back and forth,
Yeah,
or
that was
however
a
we want
word.
to
I'm
work it.
like, what do you call that?
Yeah, yeah, teeter tottering or seesawing or
Seesawing,
ping
yeah, whatever
ponging,
you, yeah, ping pong, any of
whatever
that.
the kids are playing these days.
Yeah.
Hula hoops and fax machines.
Oh my gosh. Isn't it so funny how in our time, like, it's just all changed? Like,
Oh my God, it's yeah. When we were younger, we're just looking at our grandparents and being like, how are you guys not like with this stuff? And now I'm just like, what's a TikTok?
yeah.
Now I got to sign up for that. And I'm 48 years old trying to sign up for a TikTok with the 12-year-old girls, and I'm not going to do a dance on there to, like I
Oh,
can't.
yeah. I want to see that.
Never, never.
If you do that, that'll be the day I get on TikTok.
You just got your dance, my little thing there.
That's it.
So you got Jason dancing.
Awesome.
One of the very few people who've seen that atrocity.
Well, mine's no better. I'm not quite as bad as the Elaine jerk, but
Oh yeah.
it's not good. I did not get
Uh,
rhythm.
yeah, me neither. I did not.
But you can play an instrument.
I can play an
So
instrument, but I cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. I will fall. I will bump into things. I'm just big and gangly and will knock stuff over. I'm
oh,
like a Frankenstein monster, just
oh,
where's my guitar? Where's Bigfoot?
it's hilarious. Oh my God. All right. Well,
Uh,
I will let you go and I would just say thank you. And everybody go, now you know him. There's no excuse to not follow.
Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have such a good evening.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Hi, everybody.